Hi, everybody. My name is Sasha Gorbasew. I'm a horn player with London Symphonia, and I'm joined with Timothy Lockwood, my good friend and longtime colleague in the horn section. How's it going, Tim?
Hi, just great. Never better.
Awesome. So we're looking forward to Beethoven 9, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. And we just want to talk about what's so special about this piece. So everyone knows the tune. If you listed the top 10 things, top 10 classical pieces, I'm sure Beethoven 9 would come up in the top three pretty consistently. Um, it's got voices in it, it's got choir, pretty revolutionary in its time. But as a musician sitting in the back row of the orchestra, what is so special about Beethoven 9 for a horn player? What do you think, Tim?
Well, it was kind of a transition time for the horn, as it was. Um, Early 1800s, where things were developing in terms of mechanics about how the horn works. The valve had just been invented. Didn't We're not quite sure whether Beethoven was really into that kind of thing yet, but he still liked the old natural horn. But there's everybody gets a chance to do something in the symphony with from the horn section, and so it's super fun to play. It's demanding, but it's really fun.
So one of the rarities is I think this is the first symphony that Beethoven wrote that had four horns, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And the actual addition of the fourth horn really has a feature, which you have the honor of playing. Yeah, I know you've played it before, and you will be playing it again.
A few
But
times, yeah.
yeah, a few times. So it's kind of a big deal for horn players. So why is this fourth horn solo such a big deal for horn players?
Well, it kind of comes out of the usually. Okay, so usually fourth horn is kind of the foundation of the section, and we kind of give everything to let, for instance, for sure the principal horn, first horn, just to float on top of whatever. Anyway, we kind of give the building blocks for the section to give it its great sound. Um, and it's not too often that we get to come out of the woodwork and play something that's really beautiful. And this solo that we play goes through all of that. So it starts off as sort of almost like a bassoon. We play in the low register, and we're supporting the woodwinds that are playing over top of it. But then Beethoven like totally changes gear and says, "Oh well, let's give the horn player something really beautiful to play," and he does, and it's really lovely. And then he gets the whole orchestra stop playing, and we have to play something all by ourselves. And then we go back into the woodwork of the winds. Um, and if I'm not mistaken, third doesn't play this movement. Is that right?
No, it doesn't.
Right.
I
So
get to take a break and listen to your
you're
beautiful playing.
yeah.
Sneak
Oh,
a coffee.
you won't be taking a break.
I'll be
We'll have
counting.
a discussion.
I'll be trying not to drop
Um,
anything to distract you.
so yeah, so I play in a register that, as a fourth horn player, I don't usually play in within a four horn section, and I keep getting these little snippets of melody that come out of everything, and then I go back in and I play supporting role, and so yeah, it's a really fun piece to play because we get to do all of it, which is not usual for fourth horn.
Yeah, it's a real rarity. And even after Beethoven 9, to feature the fourth horn in such a way is really it really just
That's right.
doesn't happen to this extent. And it's beautiful. It's such a big piece, and the soundscape is just so huge. But this particular moment, it's just this beautiful piece of chamber music where everything stops and literally the whole orchestra stops, and it's just the fourth horn doing this wonderful F sharp major scale. And
Yeah.
you've provided the music. Thank you for that. Just so
Yep.
people can see what it looks like. Now, there's a lot of accidentals. So you mentioned
Yes.
that the horn that Beethoven kind of favored was the natural horn,
That's right.
which it would a typical fourth horn part would have looked a lot different because it wouldn't have had
Right.
so many accidentals. So can you talk a bit about why this writing for the horn is so revolutionary? What would this have been a real shock for the fourth horn player that was seeing this for the first time?
I'll say. So, yeah, so the natural horn didn't have this center cluster of tubing, which with the valve levers that kind of help us get around the horn without changing the sound. Um, the natural horn was played with the hand in the bell that you could move and change the pitches to match whatever you needed. So for this piece, there's only a certain amount of notes that the horn could play without anything in the bell. Well, with your hand sort of. So it's so those are kind of really your only options, unless you play around with your hand in the bell. Maybe I'll stand and see if I can. There. How's that?
Good.
Um, and so you can get a lot of the other notes that weren't available. It's a little different sound. A lot of composers kind of like that thing, and I think here Beethoven really uses it really well.
So the actual different color of the stop notes kind of matches the tonality and the other instruments as well at that
Right.
particular moment, which is pretty
Yeah.
amazing. Just shows you the genius of Beethoven, which is not obvious when you're hearing the symphony. It's so many things are revolutionary about it, but just these tiny details are even, which make it so much more amazing when you get into the weeds and hear this sort of thing. So something
That's
to
right.
listen for when the audience comes to hear Beethoven 9 is just the soft parts, and just listen to the color differences as instruments change. It wouldn't be so apparent now because you're not playing it on natural horn, but in its time, the actual instrument itself, the colors would change depending on what note you're playing. So so that's amazing. So in addition to just the melodic qualities of this solo, the range is pretty huge. Just looking at the notes, how high they go, how low they go. Talk to me about the range and just the demands of playing it from a technical standpoint with the range.
Sure. Well, it starts off where I would normally play as a fourth horn, so that this opening is right where I would be playing as a fourth horn with the four horn section. Um, and he goes from there. He goes really into the basement. It's not the problem with that for the natural horn is the very lowest note wasn't really available on the horn. Um, but if you were a good natural horn player, you could you find a way. And so what we do is we use our hand to get out of the bell, which kind of helps us get down to that low note, and then we just lip it down to find out where it is. So I can just like slide all the way
Yeah.
down to get that very lowest note. Um, but then from there, as we said before, he changes gears. So going from that very, very lowest note, uh, 3 octaves up, and yeah, so I've gone now up to the top end of the range. So within the space of 4 bars.
And you've gone from just like a foundation playing the bottom of the chord to a melodic line, which would typically be heard from a first horn player, but it just continues in the fourth horn part, which is quite
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And then the real
Um,
magic happens on the next line where you get all these
that's
16th
right. So
notes.
then,
And
yeah,
that's the part that terrifies horn players because
yeah,
everything stops and you're
everything
playing enough
stops.
sharp major scale.
That's
But it's a
right.
beautiful moment. It just changes key and then this wonderful ascending scale comes out. It's just a beautiful, like the sun coming up or something. It's
Yeah,
hard to
so he
describe.
comes out of this melody at the top, orchestra style. And then the orchestra comes back in,
And you just keep on going. You just
and we
keep on
keep,
going through
yeah.
it.
And actually, so that part, like this section, is a beautiful moment for the fourth horn, but it doesn't stop there. It keeps going and going and going, and so we play all this sort of mid to high register accompanying parts, and then all of a sudden he'll give you like a bar of something that comes out of whatever else is going on, and it's, oh, that's really lovely.
Yeah.
um, and he also gives you moments of terror too.
Good old Beethoven.
Yeah, that's right. You can always count on Beethoven for that.
That's right. That's right. So that's fantastic. So as you're preparing for the concert, what are some of the challenges? What are things that you need to address, or do you have to practice differently, or do you warm up differently, kind of gearing up to
um,
playing this piece?
sure, I do play a little bit more low register warm-ups when I'm working on this, just to make sure that I can get down to the basement there. um, um, I for this one in particular, I do a lot of air flow exercises, because I think for all of it, we want to make sure that our air is flowing to keep the melody moving. Um, and the more air that we can put through the instrument, the more comfortable it'll feel.
Yeah.
So lots of
Fantastic.
breathing exercises. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. So you're playing this in October with London Symphonia. Are you playing it anywhere
Yeah.
else this season?
Yeah, it turns out, well, it's an anniversary year for this piece. It was written 1823, 24. It's anyway. Yeah, it's this season.
This season. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so playing it here. I'm playing it in Hamilton at the end of the season. It's also Geminu's last concert. She's the conductor in Hamilton Phil, and it's her last year with the symphony. So um, it's a good one to go out on with
Yeah.
Beethoven 9. So I'll be playing it there. I'm also playing. There's an orchestra in Toronto called the Mandel Philharmonic. It's kind of a pickup orchestra, but they always do really, really big things. So I'll be playing it there. I'll be playing third on that one. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Um, so
So three Beethoven nines in one season with different
yeah,
orchestras. That's
yeah,
I think that's got to be a world record
that's a
or
record for
a
me. Yeah,
Canadian record or something. A record for you for sure.
yeah.
And you've played this in the past. You've played
We've
this in
played it.
past
We've played
seasons.
it before. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think it becomes a bit of a staple for an orchestra that has a choir associated with it. Um, it's a big crowd pleaser. Everybody knows the tune. Um, that's at the end. Everybody's got to wait for it.
Hmm.
um, and yeah, so it's a big favorite with audience, and yeah, especially with choirs that are associated with orchestra.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Tim. That's fantastic. I'm looking forward, as always, to sitting next to you as you play this beautiful solo, and I'm looking forward to seeing our colleagues in a couple of weeks. I hope everyone can join London Symphonia.